Welcome back to another video for Hope Collides. Today I want to talk about another time where I just let things fall apart. My grandfather was my best friend growing up. We did everything together. I could have chosen to go to our rec program at the camp, but I chose to work with him in the fields. Even at 5, 6 years old, I'd go to the rec program occasionally, but given the option, I'd stay with my grandpa. We were like this. I'm very fortunate. The thing is, I didn't realize it at the time, but even though I knew he was following Jesus, I thought I was. But in reality, I was just following him. And I wish I would have realized that. I would have saved myself a lot of heartbreak and a lot of crumbling. So we did everything together. See, my grandfather was born with 2 heart diseases, a hole in his heart, diabetes, and no sweat glands. That's birth. He lived through multiple heart attacks and strokes. I remember the day I found out he had no sweat glands. We were walking through the Erie County Fair in Hamburg, New York, and he shoves his head in the cow trough. And I looked at I'm 12, and I looked at my mom and go, "What's he doing? That's weird." She goes, "I'll tell you in the car." And we got in the car. She told me he has no sweat glands. He very well could have overheated and possibly even died. All of a sudden, what I thought was weird, I became incredibly grateful for that act. So I want to take that as a quick lesson saying don't judge people for their actions because you don't know what they're going through. My grandpa had no sweat glands, and at first glance, I thought, that is weird. And then after I found out the truth, I couldn't have been more grateful. Anyway, the September of my senior year, he was put on hospice. They said he wouldn't make it to October. He made it to October. They said, well, we don't know how long he's going to last. December comes around, beginning of December, and they didn't say, why are you alive? That would have been really awful. But basically they said, what are your goals? He says he called me his boy. He was my step-grandpa. My grandma got remarried while my mom was pregnant with me. My first grandfather passed away long before I was born, but you wouldn't know it just from our relationship. So he said he wanted to see his boy's birthday. He called me his boy, even though we weren't blood. He wanted to see his real grandson once more, and he wanted to make it to his boy's graduation. They said, well, you might want to get a hold of your grandson to see if he can come down, because we're not sure how long it'll be. Well, his grandson couldn't come until February, unfortunately. Just the way things were, he really could not get back. So, my birthday's February 5th. He called me down to his room on February 20th. Check. He made goal number 1. And he started talking to me about how much he loved me and how proud he is of me and all this stuff. And I think in that instance, he knew. He just knew he wasn't going to make it to my graduation. Well, his real grandson came down February 21st, which happened to also be the day that he passed away. So 2 out of 3 is not bad. So I'm grateful for that. But the thing is, at the time I wasn't. I went and I made a lot of stupid decisions. Like I said, I crumbled. I fell apart because my grandpa passed away. The guy who I thought, if there's a loving God, why would he take the person I need most in the world? Which, first of all, he's not the person I need most in the world, but that was my mindset. Why would he take him when I needed him the most? Which, again, not when I needed him the most, just my mindset. And I made a lot of stupid decisions, and by the grace of God, I'm still here today. But several months later, I went to a retreat because we'd already paid the money to go, so I'm like, I need to go. And I'm sure I made everyone's life miserable the first day and a half that we were there. And then that evening, I went, and they were leading this Lectio Divina, a prayer, and sit and meditate on Scripture. And they chose Psalm 121. And I got through the first 2 verses. I lift my eyes up to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. And that is when hope collided with my brokenness. And I broke down, and I bawled my eyes out. And I ran to the back of the room where I saw this guy who was not used to the cold or the snow. He had just gotten his first ever winter coat. And I've known him for a couple months at this point. We became friends. He was easy to talk to, although he's also very loud and goofy. And I'd never seen him serious, but he's the first person I saw, so I chose him. No, God chose him. Because I hug him, and I try to explain everything through my tear-filled voice. And at the end I said, I'm sorry I'm getting your jacket all gross and snotty with my tears. And he's like, don't worry, my jacket will come clean, and by the grace of God, so will you. And that is really when I felt myself get pulled out of that miry clay. And God put my life back together because I was no longer had my foundation on my grandfather. My grandfather was following Jesus. My grandfather's foundation was on Jesus. My foundation was on my grandfather. Not the same thing. And when my grandfather passed away, I let my foundation crumble. Now my foundation is on Jesus. And I've had to deal with the passing of many close people. Two of my favorite people in the world died of cancer. My grandmother died almost a year ago. But the difference is my outlook and the people God has surrounded me with. I hope you have a wonderful day. God bless.